Long ago, an evil witch kidnapped 3 married women and turned them into rose bushes. One of the women, who had children, begged the witch to let her see her family, and the witch agreed. She took the woman to her home for one night and turned her back into a rose bush the next morning. The witch had no idea the woman's husband had followed her back because he wanted to save his wife. He looked at 3 identical rose bushes and suddenly realized which one was his wife. How? The rose bush his wife had been turned into didn't have any night dew on the leaves. A woman called the police to report that her grandmother's ring had been stolen. When a detective came to her house, she saw shards of broken glass on the ground and dirty footprints. But instead of looking for the thief, she arrested the woman who had made the call. Why? If someone had indeed broken into the house, the shards of glass would have been inside the house, not outside. As for the window, it was broken from the inside, most likely to stage the robbery. A man called his wife from the office and said he would be home by 8. He arrived home at 2 minutes past 8, but his wife was very angry because of his late arrival. Why? The wife thought the man would be home by 8 p.m., but he came home at 8:02 a.m. A small shop in New York is called 7 Bells, but there are 8 bells hanging outside. The store owner can easily correct this mistake, but chooses not to. Why? Initially, this was indeed just a mistake. But over time, the store owner noticed that people often came inside to point out the inconsistency, and this started to increase his sales. A queen had a bowl of golden apples, which were her most treasured possession. One day, one of the apples went missing.
Oh no!
She gathered all the members of the court in the throne room and told them she knew how to find the thief. Each of them had to touch a rusty pot with a rooster inside while the lights were off. The rooster would crow when the criminal touched the pot. Strangely, the rooster didn't crow throughout the whole procedure. Despite this, the queen knew who had stolen the apple. How did she figure it out? By touching the pot, the members of the court ended up with rust on their hands. But the thief was too scared to touch the pot in case the rooster crowed, so they didn't have any rust on their hands. A rich man named James Leonard was attacked in his house on a Sunday afternoon. These people were in the house at that time: the maid, the cook, the butler, the gardener, and James's wife. They gave the following statements. The maid said, "I was laying the table." The cook told the police, "I was cooking breakfast." The butler said, "I was polishing silverware and dishes." The gardener added, "I was planting tomato seeds." And the wife said, "I was reading a book." So, who attacked Mr. Leonard? It was the cook. You don't cook breakfast in the afternoon? Dennis is a talented architect. He's designed a unique skyscraper, and the construction works were about to start. His boss asked the guy to show around a group of specialists from a competitor company. The only condition was that they weren't allowed to take any photos. Dennis did as he was told, but when the group was going to leave, he asked the security to detain one man. The architect claimed he had been taking photos during the tour around the site. How did he understand it? The man was carrying an umbrella. He kept pointing it at different objects, asking lots of questions, but the sky was cloudless. What did he need the umbrella for? A camera must be hidden there. 2 men are going to fill their watering cans with water from the river. Who will bring more water? The spout of the older man's watering can is situated lower than the spout of the other man's can, and the level of water can't be higher than the spout. It means the younger man will bring more water. Mrs. Smith claims that her neighbor, Mrs. Miller, has stolen her laundry. The woman says she hung the laundry in her backyard at 10 a.m. And when she went out of the house 2 hours later, she saw Mrs. Miller putting it in her bag. "I didn't do this. It's a lie," the other woman replied angrily. The detective investigating this case asks Mrs. Smith to go to the police station for trying to slander her neighbor. How has he figured out that Mrs. Smith is lying? It's freezing outside and there's snow on the roofs. In 2 hours, damp laundry would be so frozen it'd be impossible to fold it and put it in a bag. Look at this group of people and try to figure out who the man's wife is. It's the woman in purple. Both she and the biker are wearing matching wedding rings. Detective Morris decided to have a meal at a cafe, but as he came closer, he saw a crying lady. "I was going to cross the road when some woman grabbed my purse and disappeared. I noticed her entering this cafe. Can you help me get my things back?" The detective entered the cafe. "Ah, that's my purse, right between those two women, but I can't recognize the one who took it. I didn't have enough time to look at her attentively." Morris didn't need much time to figure out which woman was guilty. It's the one on the right. The woman on the left has her left arm in a cast. If she had taken the purse, she'd have put it on the right side of herself. Joan took part in an experiment testing her logical thinking and analytical skills. The girl was locked in a small room. The door was supposed to open automatically once she figured out the riddle written on a piece of paper. Which principle is this sequence based on? 85491763320. The numbers are lined up based on the alphabetical order of the first and second letters of their names. 8, 5, 4, 9, and so on. Hannah called her friend, Detective Evelyn Marks, and asked her to come as soon as possible. While the woman was away walking with her dog, someone got into her house and stole her laptop. Hannah was sure it was her neighbor Jeremy. Evelyn went to question the man, but he wasn't at home. She decided to wait for him in her car since it was raining. Soon, she saw Jeremy opening his entrance door. "I went fishing early in the morning. Don't you see that I've just come back?" But the detective didn't believe Jeremy and took him to the police station. Why? The guy is wearing white sneakers, but it's been raining since early morning. If he was out fishing, how can his shoes look so clean? Detective Taylor was chasing a dangerous criminal. Suddenly, the man entered a hospital, but there must be hundreds of rooms there. Luckily, it was raining, and the criminal left footprints on the floor. The detective followed them and got into a small room. There were 3 people there. All of them were covered in bandages from head to toe. But one of them was a fake patient. Who? It's the man in the middle. He doesn't have a medical chart next to his bed. Look at these pretty fish. One of them is different from the rest. Which one is it? This one in the middle. Its eyes are slightly bigger than those of the others. On a cold winter day, a man was standing in front of someone's house. He didn't move or say anything until the spring, and the owner didn't mind. Who was this man? It was a snowman. During one of his experiments, a crazy scientist gives a group of people 2 pills, One safe and one poisoned, with some water to wash it down. They can choose one of the pills, so their chances are 50-50. Strangely, all people get poisoned and have to be rushed to a hospital. Can they all be so unlucky? All the pills were okay. The poison was in the water. The following riddles will put your attention and quick thinking to the test. Look at this rebus riddle. Mill and lion. Can you figure out what it means? It's 1 in a million. Now we've got this image. It's filled with room. Can you find the odd word? Yep, there's a boom among all those rooms. James is carrying a barrel that weighs 60 pounds. What can the guy add to it to make it weigh 40 pounds? All James needs to add is a hole. Find the number that doesn't belong here. Right you are. 280 is different from all these 208s. Can you figure out what's wrong in this picture? Roses don't grow on the seafloor. The same picture, but the mistake is different this time. Spiders don't live underwater. But then, where did this spider web come from? How can you pop a balloon with a knife without it bursting or losing air in the process? Deflate the balloon first. Only after that, stick the knife through it. How can you take one from 19 and get 20? You can easily do it if you use Roman numerals. See for yourself. 14 minus I equals sign x sec. Adam added 6 to 11 and got 5. And it was the correct answer. How is it possible? It's correct if we talk about time. It's 11 a.m. If you add 6 hours, it'll be 5 p.m. It took a witch 8 years to finish digging the deepest well in the world. Every next year, she managed to double its depth. How many years did it take the well to reach half of its maximum depth? Seven years. If the witch doubled the well's depth every year, it had to be half its final depth the year before it was completed. You need to get into your rival's computer, but it's password protected. The only hint you have is a note you found hidden under the keyboard. 1 mouse, 3 books, 2 boards, 1 knight, 4 balls, 2 lighters, 1 girl, 1 hall, 3 watches. Can you figure out what the password is? It's moonlight. The number in front of each word refers to the corresponding letter of this word. A treasure hunter finds a chest filled with gold and jewelry in a cave on a distant island. There are 3 keys next to the chest: red, blue, and gold. Only one of them can open the chest, and the treasure hunter has only one attempt to choose the right key. On the wall, he sees a bizarre inscription. TGK, Ho, Ili, Den. Can it help him pick the correct key? The man should choose the gold key. If he rearranges the letters in the inscription, he'll get the golden key. 3 men were swimming in the sea. The weather was getting worse, and a Coast Guard asked them to leave the water. But when they got back to the shore, only 2 of the men had wet hair. Why? The 3rd man was bald.
David worked at a construction site. Once, someone attacked him, and the unconscious man was taken to a hospital. Police officers who arrived to investigate the case had 3 suspects who also worked at the construction site: Alex, Ryan, and John. Alex said, "I was putting all tiles on the roof when the accident happened." Ryan confessed that he'd been sleeping under the tree, and John claimed that he'd been laying bricks at that time. Can you figure out who's lying? Alex was the one to hurt David. The building has no roof yet, so he couldn't be putting tiles up there. You've bought a cute little rabbit at a pet store. The animal can breed every 2 months, and every time it will deliver 5 babies. How many rabbits will you have in a year? You'll have just 1 rabbit. If you want to have little bunnies, you have to buy 2 rabbits. Look at these people attentively. Who is a mer person? Pay attention to every little detail. It's the guy on the right. Look, his hands are webbed. Allison won the main prize of $1 million on a game show. But when the shooting was over, it turned out that the host of the show had disappeared, together with the prize. The police managed to log into the computer in his office. They saw that the host had sent this message to his girlfriend. It looked like the host had told his girlfriend where he was going. The police went to the airport, but which flight was the host going to catch? Can you figure it out? Now let's see, the first 2 letters of Atlas are AT. If we take 3 letters from the word land, it'll leave us with LAN. And the 2 first letters of tattoo are TA. Together, these letters make up the word Atlanta. Hurry to the gate, officers! Jack got lost in the woods. Suddenly, he saw a castle. The man rushed there and was greeted by the owner of the castle.
You have to answer just 1 question. If you win, I'll show you the way out of the forest. But if you lose, you'll never leave my castle.
Jack agreed. The owner asked,
There are 4 mirrors on the wall. One of them reflects fire-spitting dragon Niren. The second, beautiful mermaid Laura. In the 3rd mirror, you can see a terrifying vampire Sam. And in the 4th, unicorn David. You have to figure out which reflection isn't real, and fast!
The reflection of vampire Sam isn't real. Vampires can't be reflected in mirrors. A businessman arrived at his office after a long trip and discovered that some important documents had disappeared from his desk. He immediately called the police, and a detective arrived shortly after. After interviewing all the workers, he had a list with 3 suspects on it. They were Emma, the accountant, Sophia, the receptionist, and James, a sales manager. But each of these people claimed that they hadn't even been inside the businessman's office. Still, it didn't take long until the detective figured out who was lying. Can you do the same? The thief is James. Both women wear high heels in the office, but the footprints on the floor are obviously left by sneakers. You throw me when you need me and pick me up when you don't need me. Can you figure out what I am? Right you are. I'm an anchor. How can you increase 66 by 1.5 if you aren't allowed to make any mathematical operations? Hurry up and crack this riddle. Just turn 66 upside down. It was Mr. and Mrs. Smith's wedding anniversary, and Mrs. Smith was going to put on diamond earrings her husband had presented her for their wedding. But when she opened her jewelry box, she saw that the earrings weren't there. She called her daughters, Dora and Laura. "I've told you so many times not to touch my things. Who took my jewelry this time?" Dora exclaimed, "I haven't touched your jewelry box." Laura also denied taking her mom's stuff. "I don't even wear earrings." Can you figure out which girl is lying? It was Laura who stole the earrings. Her mom didn't specify which piece of jewelry was missing. Before Detective Zelda left for the cafe, she decided to check the security camera footage recorded at night. The mayor took her to the surveillance room. There were 3 different monitors, each showing the room from different angles. Detective Zelda realized only one of them was still recording live. The other 2 were showing fake images. Which recording is real and why? Do you remember what the room looked like when Detective Zelda was inspecting it? The clock certainly wasn't on this wall. It was on the opposite one, so the footage on the first monitor is fake. The footage on the second monitor isn't real also. If you look closer, you'll see a moth flying around the room, but it repeats the same movement over and over again. That's badly edited fake footage, so it makes the footage from the third monitor the real one.
Oh, yes.
Detective Zelda rewound the footage and found the moment when the riddling man had broken into the room. He was covering his face, so it was impossible to tell what he looked like. Still, Detective Zelda managed to notice something that could help her find the criminal. Can you tell what it is? If you look at the lower left corner, you'll see someone walk into the room and leave it quickly while the riddling man is stealing the crowns. Could that mean that the riddling man has a partner? To find that out, Detective Zelda questioned all the security guards who had been working the night shift. The first guard, George, said that he'd been keeping watch in front of the door. The only time he left his place was when he took a short bathroom break. The second guard, Joe, said he'd been standing in front of the door to the mayor's office all night, and the only person who took a break was George. The third guard, Brian, said he'd been right there by the door as well. Detective Zelda knew only one of them was telling the truth, and the other 2 were lying. Who is the liar? Do you remember what the shoes of the man who entered the room looked like? White sneakers, and that's what Brian is wearing. So he's lying. And since Joe didn't mention that Brian had left his place, he's a liar too. George is the only one who's telling the truth.
Ciao.
Brian and Joe immediately started begging Zelda. "We can't end up in jail. We promised we didn't steal anything. You have to believe us," Detective Zelda asked. "Then why did you lie?" They said that they had heard some noise coming from the room while George was away. They decided that Brian would check the room and Joe would keep watch. When Brian saw someone in the room, he got scared and ran out of there. He told Joe that he would rather lose his job than have something bad happen to him. As for Joe, he lied because Brian was his best friend and he didn't want him to get fired. And since they never saw anyone enter or exit the room, they thought they were imagining things. After all, they were very tired. What do you think Zelda can do to check if the guards are telling the truth? She can check the surveillance footage of the street outside the building to confirm that nobody entered or left. When Zelda couldn't see anyone even walk across the street, she came to the conclusion that Brian and Joe were telling the truth.
Yeah.
The detective decided to check the secret room once again to figure out how the riddling man had gotten inside. Sometime later, she managed to spot another hidden door. Can you see it too? The bookcase is actually a door.
Oh my god.
She examined the door to figure out how to open it. She noticed 3 buttons, but only one could open the door. If Zelda pressed the wrong button, the door would get locked for good, and she would not be able to figure out where it led. Which button should she press? Take a look at the books next to the buttons. One of the titles is meaningless, while the others make sense. That must be an anagram, a word or phrase formed by rearranging the letters of another. When you rearrange the letters in the title, you'll get the second button. Detective Zelda pressed it, and the bookcase door opened. The woman saw a narrow hallway with stairs leading down. She took a step, and the door closed behind her back. She tried to force it open, but it wouldn't move. The only thing she could do was go down the stairs. She ended up in an underground pit. Inside, there was nothing but a shovel and a sign that showed her that she was around the pit. In the hole to the left, there were venomous snakes. The pit on the right was filled with poisonous gas. And on the ground right above her head, there was an angry dog with sharp teeth. What should she do? She should dig upwards. She needs to listen to the sounds the dog makes and wait for the animal to fall asleep. Then she should walk quietly past it. That must be how the riddling man entered and left the room. Detective Zelda didn't want to waste any more time, so she headed to Cafe West. A guy sitting at the table in the corner caught her eye. He looked suspicious. When Detective Zelda started walking towards him, he quickly wrote something on the newspaper he'd been reading. Then he ran away through the back door. Detective Zelda tried to catch him, but failed. She checked the paper and found another note. It said, "You're not the mayor, but I'll give him one last chance. It looks like you work for him, so bring me $20 million in cash. We can meet at the building that has the most stories in 2 hours." What building does the riddling man mean? The library. Of course, Detective Zelda was not going to give him any money. She took an empty bag to trick him into believing she had the cash so that he wouldn't run away.
The owner of an ice cream parlor filed a theft report. Someone stole all the money from the register. He was only gone for like 2 minutes. Detective Callum showed up 20 minutes later. There were 3 people inside. Ainsley said she had been talking on the phone with her friend. She hadn't seen anything. Red said he just arrived a couple of minutes ago. Joshua said he wasn't really paying attention. He didn't notice anything. So, can you figure out who's lying? Who stole the money? Red said he had just arrived, but his ice cream's already melted. Liar. Phoenix wanted to get her dad the best birthday present ever, but she didn't know what he wanted. She decided to break into his laptop to see what he had saved in his online shopping cart. One problem, the laptop required a password, and Phoenix didn't know it. Luckily, there was a note next to it. She sent a picture of it to her friend, Detective Callum. He solved it right away. Can you? The note doesn't make sense because it's upside down. Flip it over and you'll see a sequence of numbers 88, 89, 90, 91. The numbers before it are 86 and 87. So the password is 8687. Detective Callum traveled to a small neighboring city where young women were being kidnapped every day. 4 had already gone missing. They all lived on the same street. Their names were Ava, Bella, Celeste, and Daphne. There were only 3 women left on the street: Ava, Riley, and Georgia. Callum had to act fast. Who would be the next target? The women are getting kidnapped in alphabetical order: A, B, C, D. The next target will be Ava. Mr. Coleman's mansion was robbed while he was on vacation. He immediately called Detective Callum. Everyone who had been to the house got interrogated. Sydney, his sister, said she'd gone to the house a couple of times to find some papers on Mr. Coleman's desk. Samantha, the gardener, said she'd come every week to water the plants. Asher, the cleaner, said he'd come every Friday to clean the house. Callum found all 3 of their fingerprints on Mr. Coleman's desk. He now knew exactly who the robber was. Who? It was Samantha, the gardener. Sydney and Asher had a reason to touch the desk, but Samantha wasn't even supposed to be in Mr. Coleman's office. There aren't any plants in there. A rich woman was robbed on her private yacht during a ferocious storm. A witness said they saw Kai watching the woman right before she was robbed. Kai denied everything and said he was in his cabin at the time, writing a letter to his wife. Detective Callum asked to see the letter. 5 seconds after Kai handed it to him, Detective Callum put him in handcuffs. Why? Kai said he wrote the letter during the storm. There's no way his writing could be this neat when the entire yacht was swaying around like crazy. Logan, a young businessman, was poisoned in his house. Detective Callum was on the scene. Pretty soon he had 3 suspects. Logan's girlfriend, Michaela. She said she hadn't seen him that day because she was busy at work. Next, there was his business partner, Rob. Rob said they'd had an argument and they both got pretty angry, but he hadn't poisoned Logan. The last suspect was Blair, the driver. She said she wouldn't know how to poison someone even if she wanted to. Who should Detective Callum arrest? Look, there's fresh lipstick on Logan's shirt. It matches Michaela's. But she said she hadn't seen him that day. Suspicious. Eloise found her friend Fleur poisoned in her room. She called Callum and told him she was walking past Fleur's house and noticed her light was on. She texted her, but Fleur didn't respond. She got really worried, so she broke a window, climbed in, and found her on the floor. But Detective Callum didn't believe her. He immediately arrested her for poisoning her friend. Why? Eloise said she broke a window to get in. If that was true, the broken glass should be inside the room, but it wasn't. Eloise had to cover her tracks, so she broke the glass later from the inside. A college student was robbed during a flag presentation. Detective Callum arrived to investigate the case and interrogated several suspects. Kennedy said that she was in the bathroom at the time. Gavin said he'd noticed that the Japanese flag was hanging upside down, so he'd gone over to fix it. Eleanor said that the student who was robbed was her best friend. She would never do that. Who's guilty? It's Gavin. He said that the Japanese flag was hanging upside down, but that flag looks the same either way. He's lying. Someone stole a diamond necklace at a private VIP party. The police followed the robber into a boutique store. There were 3 customers, and they didn't know who the robber was. So they called Detective Callum. Adele said she'd never even been to a VIP party. Those things are for wealthy and famous people. Joseph said he'd never even heard about the party. Florence said she'd been in the shop for the last half hour, trying to find that perfect accessory. Who should Detective Callum arrest? Adele. She's wearing a gold bracelet and earrings. Seems like she was just at a pretty fancy event. Maybe a VIP party?
Cherry's ex-boyfriend, Drake, is a powerful magician. He doesn't want to let her go, so he kidnaps Cherry and locks her on top of a high tower, with only one window and no doors at all. Also, Drake sets a magic fire around the tower for extra protection and leaves. Cherry realizes that she has little time to escape. She looks around and sees 3 magic potions. The bottles are labeled. One would give her incredible physical strength. The other one would turn Cherry into a vampire. And the third one would let her summon any animal. Which potion should she use? Even if Cherry destroys the tower, she can do nothing with the magic fire. And no animal can help her escape. But if she becomes a vampire, she'll be able to turn into a bat and fly away. Cherry escapes and finds herself in an enchanted forest. Can you find 4 magical creatures here? Take a look at this cave. There's a troll hiding inside. Also, there are 2 pixies sitting on the flowers. And this tree is a wood goblin. Cherry goes ahead and finds a road sign. There are 3 routes leading to the nearest village. An immortal fire-breathing dragon is guarding the first path. The second route lies through the lands of a witch. She hates men and turns every guy who dares to enter her land into a stone statue. And the third path is a habitat for leopards. Can you help Cherry choose the best route? The second option sounds good. Cherry is a woman, so the witch has no reason to turn her into a statue, because she only hates men. Cherry asks the witch to help her find the village. The witch offers a deal.
If you crack my pattern riddle, I'll tell you. But if not, you'll be my servant forever.
Cherry had nothing to do but agree.
You can have pepper, but not salt. You can have beef, but not chicken. Carrots, broccoli, and cabbage. But no potato in any form. Oh, and you have to eat with a spoon.
Can you help Cherry crack the pattern? She's only allowed items containing 2 of the same letters in a row. The witch helps Cherry find a road. 3 drivers stop and offer a ride to the village. Can you help Cherry choose the safest option? There's a zombie hiding in the back of the first car, and there are no passenger seats in the third car. Although the second car's windshield is cracked, it's still the best choice. Finally, Cherry finds the village. This place is magical. Many amazing creatures live here. Suddenly, a half-hippo approaches Cherry and yells,
"Please help me. One of these guys had stolen my clothes."
Can you guess who? Take a look at the dog's badge. It says Hippo. So, it was the dog who stole his shirt. Cherry meets the local farmer, Timothy. He used to keep chickens in another country. Things were going well and he made good money. But then he bought a big farm in this village and moved there. Soon, Timothy got to know that floods are very frequent in this area. But he didn't get upset and decided to breed ducks instead of chickens. Why? Ducks can swim, so floods aren't so dangerous for them. Timothy invites Cherry over for dinner at home. But unfortunately, Cherry's ex-boyfriend Drake had already found them. He captures Timothy and Cherry at the farmer's house. Suddenly, the phone rings. Drake allows Timothy to take the phone, but he can't reveal the situation. Otherwise, Drake will use his magic wand to turn them into snakes. So Timothy replies,
Hey, Mom, how can I help you? I'm home and about to go to bed.
"If it's not an emergency, can I call you later? I'm really sleepy." 30 minutes later, the police arrive, confiscate the magic wand, and rescue the guys. How did Timothy ask for help? He held the mute button saying everything except the words help, home, emergency, and call. The detective gives Drake a chance to get freedom. He can pass through one of these 3 doors. Jungles full of dangerous animals are hiding behind the first door. Behind the second door, there's a tank with ice water that is impossible to stand in for even a minute. And there's a giant fire-breathing dino behind the third door. Which door is more or less safe? Drake should pick the third door. Dinos don't breathe fire, and they went extinct millions of years ago. Drake returns to his castle and discovers that someone had broken all the bottles with his precious potions in his lab. Drake gets furious and interrogates his 3 goblin servants. Willie says,
I was cleaning the castle all day long. I didn't even enter your lab today.
Tilly says,
I was picking roses in the garden in the morning. Then I entered your lab to bring rose petals for your potions. Everything was fine.
And Billy says,
I was cooking dinner in the kitchen and then I went to the bathroom to take a quick shower.
Who's lying? Tilly. He didn't pick the roses. They're still in the garden.
Harry loves different kinds of bets. Every time he meets his friends, he has a new one. Last weekend, he suggested a challenge. He said that he could place a cup in the middle of a room and easily crawl into it. Nobody believed that he could do that, so Harry's friends were sure they would win. Still, Harry won the bet. How did he do that? He said he could place a cup in a room and crawl into it. He didn't mention whether it was a cup or a room, though. So he crawled into a room and won the bet. Anna left a shopping list for her husband, Jeff. There were only 2 items, but she decided to prank Jeff a bit. So she didn't write exactly what he needed to buy, but wrote 2 riddles. The first item in her list was full of holes, but still could hold water. And the second item had 4 fingers and a thumb, but it wasn't alive. What was Jeff supposed to buy? Jeff needed to grab a sponge and a pair of gloves. Andrew went hiking to the mountains, but all of a sudden, an earthquake started. He fell through a narrow tunnel into a large pit where zombies lived. Luckily, Andrew has 3 different elixirs that could help him. The first elixir can make him grow in size, the second elixir can make him fly, and the third elixir can make him invisible. He only can drink 1 elixir. Which one should he choose? He doesn't need to grow in size because he won't make it through the tunnel if he does. The zombies living in the pit can hear and smell, so they'll find him even if he's invisible. He should choose the ability to fly. It'll help him get back. A notorious bad guy caught William, a wealthy businessman, and locked him in a room. I won't let you out until you double the money I leave for you. And the criminal put $3,000 on the table. By the time he returned, William had already doubled the money, but he hadn't left the room or talked to anyone. How did he do that? He put the money in front of the mirror. 2 friends, Eric and Angus, decided to play. On the table, There was a plate with 11 green apples and 7 red apples. Eric was blindfolded, and he needed to grab some apples without seeing them. How many apples should he take to make sure he has 2 apples of the same color? The total quantity of apples on the plate doesn't matter. The main thing is that there are only 2 colors. So if Eric takes 3 apples, there will be at least 2 apples of the same color for sure. 3 students, Amanda, Lisa, and Mark, were having a party the night before an important exam, so they weren't ready for it. The following day, they called the professor and asked him to reschedule the exam. They said they got a flat tire on their way to the university, which was a lie. The professor agreed to reschedule the exam, but he said that if he finds out they were lying, all of them will get an F. The students agreed. Some days later, when Amanda, Lisa, and Mark came to the university to pass the exam, the professor gave them an exam sheet with 1 question only. The students were sitting far away from each other so that they couldn't cheat. When the professor collected the sheets, all the students got an F. What question was it? The professor asked the students which tire got flat. They weren't ready for it, and all of them had different answers. Ashley invited friends and cooked a delicious dinner. When everybody was at the table, she suddenly realized one of her friends didn't like the meal. Who was it? It's Chris. He secretly shared his pasta with Ashley's dog. The police got an anonymous letter about an upcoming heist in one of the museums. To stop it from happening, they need to know the month the heist is planned for. The letter had a secret code. The police couldn't crack it, so they brought it to the detective. What month is the heist planned for? It's September. Star stands for S, pear stands for P, and rain stands for R. There were only 3 letters in the code, but September is the only month that has the letters S, P, and R in its name. There are 20 floors in the apartment building. The higher the floor is, the more people live there. Which floor does the elevator go to most often? It's the first floor. The residents of all floors go down to the first floor. The other day, Mary was rummaging around her grandmother's attic when she accidentally stumbled upon 5 short chains, each made of 4 silver links. She thought it would be great if she combined them all into one big chain of 20 links. When she went back to town, she brought those tiny chains to a jeweler. He told her it would cost her $5 for every silver link that he would have to break and then reseal. How much will the chain cost? Mary could do that for $25 if she told the jeweler to break a link in each chain. However, she asked the jeweler to break all 4 links in one chain and use them to attach the other chains together, which cost her $20. Stephanie got hungry and wanted to boil a 2-minute egg. She had a 3-minute hourglass timer, a 4-minute hourglass timer, and a 5-minute hourglass timer. How can she cook the egg for only 2 minutes? When Stephanie sees the water boiling, she should turn the 3-minute timer and the 5-minute timer over. When the 3-minute timer runs out, she needs to put the egg in the boiling water. She'll have 2 minutes left on the 5-minute hourglass timer.
Was having a walk in the forest and got lost. She was wandering around until she found the road leading to the house of a witch, her old friend. Esme approached the house, but the witch wasn't there. Instead, there were 4 open portals. On the table, Esme found the witch's to-do list. Can you figure out which portal the witch entered? The first 2 tasks on the witch's to-do list are completed, so she's most likely left to catch some frogs. The number in brackets must mean the number of sides each portal has. 10 is a star, 3 is a triangle, 4 is a square, and a 0 is a circle. To catch some frogs, she must have used the portal that looks like a square. Cindy was a kind and beautiful girl in her junior year. 2 best friends, Dylan and Kobe, wanted to ask her out to prom. So the guys decided to ask Cindy's best friend which of them likes Cindy more. The girl didn't want to share her best friend's secrets, but she gave them a hint.
Cindy loves pizza, but she can't stand burgers. She likes to go to the pool, but never goes to the gym. Her favorite animal is the llama, but she's afraid of zebras.
Which of the boys does Cindy like? Cindy's friend wanted to give the guy a clue, so we have to look for some pattern. All the things Cindy likes have double letters in them. Dylan has the double L in his name, so he must be the one Cindy likes more. Kate woke up in a dungeon and couldn't remember what had happened to her. The place didn't look safe, so she decided to get out. The door was open and she left the room, walking down the hallway. Several minutes later, Kate stopped in front of 2 elevators and 1 door with an exit sign on it. Is it the way out? In any case, the door was locked and required a password. Can you guess what the password is? Pay attention to the numbers on the elevators. They say 13 and 11, so the password must be 1311. In a small, quiet town, young men started to go missing. The police had been looking for them for many months and couldn't find any traces. But one day, they discovered an abandoned basement in an old swimming pool. Inside, there were 3 young men who claimed they had been held there for 3 months. One of them was the kidnapper. But who? Look, one guy doesn't have facial hair whatsoever, and another man has grown a beard since he hasn't shaved in 3 months. But this guy is freshly shaved, so he must be the kidnapper. Oliver is terrible at packing. Whenever he goes somewhere, he always takes stuff he'll never need, so he needs your help with some packing. Today, he's packing to go camping in the forest. Take a look at his bag and decide what he won't need on the trip. Look, there's an electric hairdryer. There's no electricity in the forest, so he can definitely leave it at home. Now look at what Oliver has packed for his vacation in Egypt, where he'll be staying in an all-inclusive hotel. Is there anything he won't need? Is that laundry detergent? Yeah, you don't wash your clothes yourself in an all-inclusive hotel. Now he's off to his girlfriend's place to spend the weekend with her. What does he have in his bag that he really won't need there? Is it a roll of toilet paper? I think it's very likely that his girlfriend has that. Oliver is going to visit his grandparents and stay with them for a week. They live on a farm where there are cows and horses. Oliver is going to chill and do some gardening. Now check his suitcase. What's there that he won't need? I don't think he'll need his tuxedo. He'll most likely be wearing some casual clothes all the time. Yasmin is wandering through a forest and sees a spooky house. As soon as she steps inside, the door behind her back slams shut. It's the house of an old magician who doesn't like visitors. But there's a chance for strangers to escape. There are 3 drinks. The red one will turn Yasmin into a mouse for an hour. The green one will allow her to fly for an hour. The blue one will make her breathe fire for an hour. Which drink should Yasmin choose if she wants to get out? Yasmin should drink the red liquid. She'll turn into a mouse and will be able to escape through this little hole in the front door.